Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is here today as we take a look at the Eagles and the Rams. Some Eagles news. Nick Sirianni talking today as well. We bring in Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms and on YouTube. Just search Inside the Birds. He joins me now on a Sports Bash Wednesday where we are getting ready to see the Eagles take on the LA Rams. Jeff Mosher, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Mike. I'm doing well. Should be a good game on Sunday night. Eagles-Rams. A lot at stake for both teams, so that's always good. You like when a primetime matchup means something for both teams because sometimes you don't get that, as we'll find out on Thanksgiving when the Giants and Cowboys have to play each other and like that. So I'm excited. Should be a good game.
Yeah, no, you're right. And all right, I want to get into some defense stuff here. Eagles last year 9-1, this year 8-2. It's a big difference between the 10-game stretch last year and this year.
A mathematician might say it's a one-game difference, Mike. I don't know if that's big or not.
When you look at that team last year at 9 games, does it feel different from this team after 10 games? Feel different after 10 games this year? And if so, where are those differences discernible and noticeable to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'm going to be honest. I think if everybody is being honest, at 10-1 last year, despite the fact that there were some defensive pitfalls, right, and some real issues, I think when they got to 10-1 after beating Buffalo, I think it was, people felt pretty darn good about the Eagles and Nick Sirianni's record and Jalen Hurts and, overcoming the defensive issues that they were having because they were 10-1 and they had beaten some pretty good teams, Kansas City, Buffalo. I can't remember all the teams at this point that they had beaten last year at that point, but the schedule was not a cupcake. The Rams, the Dolphins. So I don't think anybody saw.
Dallas was in there on the road?
Yeah, Dallas was good. Yes, right. I don't think anybody saw the kind of slide. You could have told me they were going to lose a couple of games in the second half or the defense was finally going to crumble a little bit, but I would not have seen that. And so I don't know that I feel differently about this Eagles team now than I did last year at this time. I thought last year at the time the Eagles were looking pretty good. Obviously, the 49ers game just completely wrecked them, and then losing to Seattle the next week, it's funny how things can change in just a 2-week span. So I take that same approach into this year. They're looking really good, and they've changed things around. And if you just looked at them in a 2-game span and took maybe the Atlanta game and the New Orleans win, which didn't look so good, you might feel a lot differently as well. But I don't want to say danger is right around the corner, Mike. It certainly isn't. But I think you feel better about how this defense is than at this time last year. But now you have to look at the offense and wonder, can the passing offense especially, the rushing offense is great, number one in the league. You look at the passing offense and say, is this thing being held together loosely, or can this get better? It's got to get better if they're going to beat, the Ravens and the Steelers, and eventually if they have to play the Lions or somebody else in the playoffs.
All right, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to get into a couple things. You mentioned the defense. They are the number 1 rated defense in the league. Do they feel like the number 1 rated defense in the league?
If I'm being honest, no. And I don't think I'm being a jerk or too critical or Negadelphia. I feel like they are a very good defense, but do they feel like when I think of a number 1 defense, I think of like a pass rush that is suffocating or a secondary that produces a ton of turnovers. I kind of think about what the Steelers have been, what the Ravens were last year. At times the Seahawks and the old Legion of Boom. I think this is an improved defense. It's a much more athletic defense, especially on the back end. But I do think that they're going to hit a little bit of a wall here over the second half. And I don't want to say get very loose, but I think that I don't know if they're going to scare the Rams, the Ravens, some of the teams they're going to play in the second half and be like, oh, we can't move the ball against the team. The Commanders are probably kicking themselves for some of the plays that were there to make on Thursday night.
All right, they're the best rushing team in the league. They're 22nd pass. What's missing with the pass?
First and second down first of all, they're running the ball, as you just said, a lot. So that's different. They're running the ball a lot on first and second down. The big play is obviously there. They've even been able to hit some big plays on third down, but they're think we talked about this on Monday, taking way too many sacks. Jalen Hurts is. I think he's taken the third most in the league per pass attempt, which is not normally where Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense has been. And when they want to throw the ball on first and second down, too many missed layups.
All right, I want to get into some of the things that are going on around the team. Speaking of the passing offense, you start to get concerned at all about Devontae Smith, or is this just going to be a year-long thing? He did not practice today. He's got this hamstring thing. He was kind of limpy off the field the other day. Is there going to be a time where they're going to have to maybe sit him for a week or two? What do you think?
I don't think there's anything that I'm seeing him on today slowed down by injury. I think that when you're running the ball, I don't know what the numbers are as far as percentage, 8-10% more, then those are passes, right, and potential catches that someone's getting. They beat the Commanders, but nobody had more than, I think, 7 or 8 targets. I think A.J. Brown led with 60-something yards, if I'm not mistaken. So the point is, I think that's more responsible for why you're seeing Devontae Smith. He's had big games, but sort of have big games, not have big games. Same thing with Dallas Goedert. We know that A.J. Brown is the number one most trusted guy in the offense for Jalen Hurts, as he should be. So when you're running the ball as much as you are, now you're starting to throw to your running backs a little bit. Yeah, you're going to see fewer targets for some other guys, and that's what you're seeing with Devontae Smith right now.
Bryce Huff going to get surgery, may or may not be able to come back, but obviously he has not lived up to it. But some people just look at stats and say, he hasn't been any good. But is this going to be a loss for them, or can they withstand? The interesting thing about Jeff, they're the number one defense. They don't blitz a lot, and they don't have like a TJ Watt level edge rusher, yet they're getting pressure, but is it sustainable? What kind of loss is Huff in the big picture if you're being fair to this guy? For some people, they're just not fair. I'm one of those people. I didn't like the signing to begin with. I didn't think he was very good, and I don't know that he's given them what they thought. But that being said, he is missing time. What does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lack of a body, right, in the pass rush. So now you have to ask Nolan Smith to play more snaps, a 36-year-old Brandon Graham to play more snaps. You have to get Josh Sweat, who last year we saw kind of struggle once the calendar turned to November and December. He looks fine this year, and people say his get off is good again, and maybe that's fine. But the bottom line is everybody's got to play a little bit more snaps. And to your point on the edge rush and the whole number one defense, they don't have a TJ Watt-like player. I think the back end has been so improved that it's helped the front end in some regard. It's made the quarterbacks hold on to the ball. And as the competition gets a little better, I imagine that the Eagles' lack of an edge rusher of a Hassan Reddick type caliber is going to show in certain situations. So it's hard to call Bryce Huff a loss because he just hasn't, as you mentioned, produced the way you would have hoped when he signed that big contract. But
Right.
I think you would also have hoped by this point in the season he would have shaken that off, and he was starting to in some respects, but he nowhere near the contract that he signed. But you were hoping that he would start to round into form and understand how to play in this defense better by now, and that's not going to be the case.
All right, I got the number for you here. Saquon Barkley is on pace for 2,289 scrimmage yards and 17 touchdowns. But
Is that a good thing? Asking for a friend.
But are they leaving meat on the bone with Barkley?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean,
and I'm not asking in a condescending way. Like, are they using him to the best of their abilities, or do you think there are more ways that they could use him?
Well, I'm going to say, given his injury history, right, and given the workload he's already had, I'd be pretty nervous about trying to give this guy even more touches than he already has.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they're managing him pretty well in that regard, and they're getting the most out of him. And there's going to be a couple of games where I know fans are going to get ticked off. You know it, right? They're going to come out passing, like when they play the Cowboys again, maybe the next time they play the Commanders, because they're going to A, they need to get their passing game going, and B, they're gonna sniff out some matchups that they might think are favorable. And that, so I also think they're going to want to keep Saquon Barkley fresh for the playoffs once they kind of lock that down. So I really don't think it's fair to ask more of Saquon, to be honest with you.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, 22, almost 2,300 yards, 17 touchdowns. Obviously, those numbers, the touchdowns could be even greater if not for the tush push. Could they use him a little bit better or differently in the pass game? Don't need to see that from him. I guess that sounds like for you, you don't need to see him be more involved in the pass game.
So Adam and I have talked a lot on Inside the Birds about getting the running backs, especially the ones they have, him and Gainwell, even Shipley, more involved in the pass game because these guys are weapons in the pass game. They catch the ball well and they have moves. But if I'm going to sort of write down a list of priorities for the Eagles passing offense and how to get it right, that's not going to be the highest thing on the list at this point. I would much rather just see them be a little bit more consistent on first and second down and hitting the intermediary levels of the field than worry about if they're throwing the ball to the running back enough.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there'll be times where we got to say, hey, look, the check down's there, take it. But actually, hey, look, Barkley's 46-yard catch against the Commanders came on a nice little check down. They were rushing 5. Jalen backpedaled, and he flicked it over the pass rush to Barkley, and he was wide open.
That's the play.
That was a good play.
Yeah, that's the play I'm wondering if they can replicate or do more of.
Well, I would think that there would be that ability. We've seen them look for answers against 5- and 6-man rushes, usually in the flats, but I like that they for whatever reason, Mike, and I'll never understand this, they have become a terrible screen team. I mean, they went from being under Doug Peterson, a really, really good screen team, including to Dallas Goedert. The tunnel tight end screen was one of my favorite plays that the Eagles would run under Doug, right? But when's the last time they ran that, or when's the last time they really ran a well-executed screen more than once a game or even once in a game? It's sort of mind-boggling to me because that's a really good play to use in certain situations, especially against pressure, but they're just not a good screen team. I don't know why.
Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, and of course, Inside the Birds.
You realize they're going to run 3 screens against the Rams, right? And it's going to go for like 58 yards.
I can't.
And I'm going to get a lot of hate texts. And
I tweeted this out during the game last week. Enough with the tight end screen, the bubble screen to the tight end. It doesn't work. They run that little bubble to Dallas Goedert, and I don't think I've ever seen it work.
Been a while, my friend.
Amen. I don't mind a screen or a bubble screen to a wideout, but that tight end screen is enough. Enough with that. I mean, it's crazy. Jeff Mosher, where is the weirdest place you have ever broke news?
I don't. So this is a thing because of Adam Schefter. I didn't see it, but I guess I saw a snippet of it.
Yeah, he said he was he was in bed having relations with a woman who he had just met, and he got a text message, and he stopped what he was doing to break the news.
Well, see, that's why Adam has reached the level he has, and I haven't because I'm just not willing. I had pulled over on the side of a highway, a Schuylkill, to break some news in really tight spaces where I wasn't quite. I'm in the shoulder, but it doesn't mean I'm not getting hit because I'm on a Schuylkill.
Yeah.
So that comes to mind. And if you gave me like probably 10 more minutes, which we don't have, I would probably figure out a wacky place. But that's a memory.
Yeah.
One of my first scoops.
All right, Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. All right, man. Think about it and text me.
I will. I'll let you know. Thanks.
All right, Jeff Mosher, everybody. Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN.